I'm shifting focus now to China to talk about what could be probably one of the biggest nightmares for Xi Jinping. What is that? Well, he may not have enough wheat to feed his people. National security to a large extent in China revolves around food security. That's very important, and it should be as it is, as gross national power around the world is measured. There's a 7-year low at which the Chinese wheat output stands at. What does that mean? It means that they'll have to import more. It is the world's largest producer, world's largest importer of wheat at a time when there are headwinds indicating that trade will get impacted, at a time when there are conversations around how Xi Jinping will look to, in fact, increase his hold within the domestic constituencies in China. Such high levels of wheat shortages are likely to have an impact on his political capital, which is why this is an important story with many legs. I'm going to try and get Einar Tangen in just a bit. In fact, he joins me live. He's a senior fellow, chairman of Asia Narratives Substack. Hopefully, there'll be less narratives, more facts here. Mr. Tangen, at the end of the day, the Chinese wheat output is at a 7-year low. It's bound to have some sort of an impact on policymakers. What are their plan B that they're looking at?
Well, they're always concerned about food security, and that has been a national priority. You're correct, under Xi Jinping. But one of the first things that leaders in China learn from their long history is that you have to have ample stockpiles, which they do have. And also, right now, demand has been a little bit lower than it has been in the past. But you have to look at this on a global situation. The leading wheat producer in the world with largest exports is actually Russia. It's just across the border. They've had a very good harvest, about 3% down on their 5-year average, but 2% better than last year. And if you start looking at the CBO, the exchanges, you'll find that the wheat prices did not accelerate. In fact, the last quote was it was unchanged at about $5.39 a bushel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so wheat is a staple diet in China. Of course, it's also a substitute grain in animal feed. It's particularly important when it comes to noodles, dumplings, essentially the staple diet of Chinese. If there is wheat shortage, viewers, what it does mean is that prices go up, right? Inflation is something that every leader wants to be insulated from, because that is probably the best benchmark of being able to identify how cost of living standards and people in general view the government. More so, given that China is a closed government, very little information actually comes out that is not supervised and monitored by the government. Mr. Tangen, the question really here is that how much does this impact the government's calculation, Xi Jinping's political calculation? Because as I said, there is also heavy tariffs that have been imposed on American wheat, which will not ease the prices that are set to rise, that are likely to impact him.
Well, China also consumes a tremendous amount of rice. But your premise is wrong. You started out the show saying that you're going to wanted me to do less narrative and more facts. Well, let's look at the facts. The facts are by the market. The markets react very, very closely to any kind of perceived shortage, and they have not reacted at all. Now, you can argue with that, but it's still a fact. So at this point, China is not concerned. They've had relatively low inflation. They've been concerned about actually increasing prices, not decreasing them. This is not going to hit China very hard. As I keep telling you, they have ample stockpiles, and they have other markets in the Soviet Union and South America, as well as Australia. So it is not a big story. I know that there's a desire to see it as such. But at this point, as the markets are telling you, it's not an issue for China.
All right. It's good to know, because at the end of the day, between geopolitics, there are people's lives that are at stake. And if you think that this is not a big issue, then for ordinary Chinese, it is a good thing. I'm going to leave it there. Einar Tangen joining me live to talk more about what could have larger ramifications for China. The fact that its staple diet, which is wheat, is set to probably see prices rising significantly, since wheat output is at a 7-year low.